I want to set the tone really quickly for this conversation, and I want to talk about some important things here. So number one, this is a conversation that has needed to happen because anti-Black womanism is a true reality. Every woman that's on this panel is Black. And so we have direct lived experiences with this, in addition to being very observant of what is happening and what continues to happen in our society, in the Black community, and also in other spaces as well. Excuse me. In addition to that, this conversation is not, and let me repeat that, this conversation is not to create divisiveness, nor
Right.
is it to diminish the severity of the crimes where Black men like George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and all of the others were assassinated at the hands of white supremacist law enforcement groups. Okay, so this is not to diminish that. This is not to create a division between the Black community or between Black men and Black women. This conversation is about speaking truth and only the truth, because that's what I stand for. Okay.
Exactly.
And third of all, my contention is and will always be that the only way to solve or to heal solve a problem or to heal a malady or sickness in this society is to always acknowledge it. You have to be very honest. We have to acknowledge these things, these issues, from a place of openness, truthfulness, and also intentionality. Okay. So now that we covered all of that, because I know some people might be feeling like, oh, here go these Black women up here. They gotta, X, Y, and Z. So, I don't want to hear that tonight. So let's go ahead and get into it. This episode is another installment of the Forgotten Ones series. And so the purpose of that is to highlight and to uplift the stories of those in the Black community who are consistently and repeatedly made to be invisible, and also who their deaths, their assaults, their horrible oppressive circumstances are not brought into full focus or into full view as others within our community as well. So welcome. Tonight specifically, we're going to be talking about anti-Black womanism and the gender hierarchy in the pursuit of justice. My entire life, I have bear witness to the many, many ways in which Black women specifically are marginalized, are made to be invisible, and how we are consistently not heard, our stories are not believed, and how we are very strategically and consistently silenced in a very structural and institutional sort of way, but also socially within our own families, within our own communities, and a lot of the personal institutions that are very sacred to us in some of our friendships, our relationships with intimate partners, with colleagues, et cetera, even in religious spaces as well. So with that, I, in the wake of all of the consecutive assassinations of Black people that have taken place this year, one of the things that I have noticed is that there has been a lot more focus, a lot more attention that has been placed onto the Black men who have unfortunately had their lives ripped away from them at the hands of white supremacists and racists in this society. What I have noticed is that a lot more attention has been placed onto their deaths, and there's been a lot more a more heightened energy, I will say, placed behind ensuring that justice is actually actualized for their deaths, and also to ensure that the law enforcement officers and the white supremacists, including those who killed Ahmaud Arbery, that they are held accountable. And in contrast to that, the same energy has not and is usually not really placed behind ensuring that justice is enacted for Black women. Let me highlight some of the Black women who have had their lives taken away first, okay? And then we'll get into the discussion. So, as we all know, Breonna Taylor had her life taken away earlier this year. She was 27 years old. And she is someone who people are definitely using the hashtag, and people are definitely bringing light to, how her life was taken away at the hands of white police officers and what they did. But I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but her murderers are walking free at this point.
Right. One of them was let go. I don't know if it was fired, I guess.
Fire, okay.
With or without severance pay, but because it said let go the first time. So
okay, gotcha. So
but they have yet to be arrested. They are still free men.
There you go.
They murdered her. And if you listen to her mother describe how she got the phone call that her child was murdered because they had the wrong house. They were looking for someone who did not even live there. And also the man that they were looking for was in police custody.
Right.
So it was an issue on their part, and they went in and murdered this girl. This young woman, excuse me, she's not a girl. She's a woman.
She was a young woman.
She was murdered.
At that.
Yes, exactly. And she was murdered, and they are walking free right now. And they murdered her, and nothing happened. And also, they arrested her boyfriend at the time, and they were trying to charge him with assault on police officers because he was defending his house, because it was a no-knock warrant, and they were awakened out of their sleep. They did not know. They thought somebody was trying to break in.
And there you go. Sandra Bland, of course, another Black African-American woman who was 28 years old, had her life taken away from her in 2015. Okay. And I think most people know the story behind that. Tatiana, I think I'm pronouncing her name correctly, was 28. She was killed in her home as well in 2019. Tamla Horsford, this woman was 40 years old. She was in Forsyth County, Georgia. Now, she was the only Black person, the only Black woman in attendance at this adult slumber party. And in November of 2018, she died under mysterious circumstances.
Right.
And it's only
off a balcony.
Right. Fell off a balcony.
She fell off
right.
a balcony. Right.
Yeah, I don't really think that people just fall off balconies, but you know.
And the only Black woman fell.
Exactly. She was the only Black person there. And in a little bit of research that I was doing on her case, some weeks ago, it was my understanding that those who were in attendance claimed that she was drinking heavily and that she was suicidal as well. But her family completely negates that. All right.
Yeah. There's no way.
Right.
Oh, but alterations to the police report by the man who worked at the court, that was the other thing that happened with that.
Exactly.
Okay. And thank you for adding that too. Now, it was in this month, June of 2020, that the GBI has confirmed that they are now reopening her case, right?
Right.
So that's like 18, 19 months later.
Right.
Ayanna Jones, now she was 7 years old, and African-American young girl from Detroit's East Side who was shot in the head and killed during a raid conducted by Detroit Police Department's Special Response Team. This was on in May of 2010. This was 10 years ago. That child would have been 17 years old, right?
Exactly.
Here's a story that just really, it just really gets to me every time. Charlena Lyles, and this occurred in 2017. She was 14 to 15 weeks pregnant at the time of her assassination, which occurred in Seattle, Washington by 2 white police officers. Now, it was already noted, and most people knew that she did suffer from some mental health issues, but she was cognizant, she was in her right frame of mind enough to be able to actually call the police for medical assistance. That is why she called them. Their claims were that she was wielding a knife around, and they used that as an excuse to take this woman's life. She had 5 or 6 children, if I'm not mistaken, and was pregnant with another child. One of her children had Down syndrome, and she called to get assistance so that she could get help for her child. And her and her unborn child's life were taken away at the hands of these white police officers.
Where's the alt-right conservative pro-lifers when things like this happen? Because they hate Black Lives Matter, but they claim to be pro-life, but they've been very silent about her death when it comes to the hands of the police. Nobody said anything from these pro-lifers since they care so much about the lives of unborn children.
Right.
That's it. And that is the hypocrisy. What do all of these women, Black women, have in common? Number 1, they're Black. Number 2, they're female. Number 3, they are Black females. And unfortunately, what happens is all too often is that anytime that Black women and young Black girls are assaulted and murdered, killed in this sort of way, there is little to no media coverage. Black women's, the violence that is committed against Black women is just swept under the rug all too often, and it is kept out of the public eye. And I believe that is one of the contributing factors as to why there is this hierarchy that's placed on the visibility of Black women.
Absolutely.
Right. And in addition to that, the pain and the traumas that we as Black women experience on a daily basis, it is the result of both racism and sexism, but nobody sees that. And unfortunately, people also do not talk about the incessant and the ongoing number of cases that occur where Black women are repeatedly raped and sexually assaulted by law enforcement officers. That never.
Military.
Say it again.
Military as well.
Yes, exactly. And you're absolutely right. And so,
and sexual assault is the second most reported form of police misconduct after excessive force. So
yes, it is.
It's just another way that women are being brutalized by police. So not only do we have to worry about being pulled over and killed, but we may be pulled over, assaulted, raped, then killed, silenced, and then, have no one, and then to do all of that and maybe not have anybody advocate on our behalf, or to have our stories pushed underneath. Like, as you said before, we don't want to create a divide. However, there is an issue going on right now. Breonna was killed in March by the police. George was killed in May by the police.
Late May.
Yeah, all of these stories should have massive attention to it. We know Black Lives Matter. The 3 women that started Black Lives Matter, they said that they care about all Black lives. So that includes Black men, Black women, Black trans folk, whoever. It includes all of them. But unfortunately, a lot of protesters and a lot of people who advocate, who start these protests, they're only laser focused on men.
Yep. Black men.
Right, on Black men. So in that way, they sort of create the divide. You know what I mean? And it's just incredibly unfair. And it is, once again, like, Black women can't even get, there's a hierarchy in liberation. Black women can't even be respected in their deaths when it comes to police violence. Like, it's always let Black men go first, and then we'll figure out Black women. And then if we feel like it, we're going to talk about trans people, but not really. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a mess. It's a mess. And we have got to do better than that.
Nicole, I want to ask you, why do you think this is occurring? And also, do you think there are any specific structures or like institutions that have created this gender hierarchy, right? Like in the world, but specifically in the Black community?
I think it's happening more so because I really attribute it to the hierarchy, honestly. It's like we're second class citizens. So it's more so you have the spectrum of our color, then you have spectrum of your gender. So that goes across races, then the women come next. And then, I mean, not even children, really.
Right.
That's a whole nother issue about Black children. So
yeah.
I really just think it's just how the nomenclature, the spectrum is of men and women.
Whew.
I think we also have to add in like what Nicole was speaking on, but it's the patriarchy too, and the patriarchy that allows us to place men in the position of, well, let's let men shine first, and then women. Like, it goes along with that whole, head of the household. And I know this is gonna, like, whatever. Some people look at the look at the structure of a household, whereas I've heard a lot of women say, the man is the head and the woman is the neck, and you turn that whole, like, I'm like, that's ridiculous as hell, y'all. But okay, but it's just like the women only matter if it's in correlation to a man. You know what I mean? So like, exactly. So it's like a woman, and we can even look at like women. Let's take this to slavery, although we know this whole thing didn't start just with slavery. But one of the things, let's think about how women were raped in slavery, but it was that man's raped my wife.
Listen, you must have been reading my notes because I was gonna get into that.
Yeah, I didn't mean to jump ahead, but
it's all
good. but when we talk about it, we have to really think about how women are erased and how women just don't matter, and women are just an extension of a man's suffering or a man's pain. She never has ownership of her own. It's just always, well, that's my wife or my girl or my daughter or whoever. It's not. No, that happened to her. It happened to her vagina. It happened to her mind. It happened to her body. It has nothing to do with the man. And
it's the same thing as when people say, like, people try to convince men not to rape or to sexually assault women. They'll be like, she's someone's daughter, she's someone's mother. And it's like, well, actually, she's someone.
She's someone. Period. That's
period. Period. Exclamation point. It's like, and I completely agree with you, Middleist, because it's just this patriarchal mindset that if you are a woman, you ain't nothing. You can go on, and I've said this to so many people over these last couple of decades, like, you are nothing. Especially if you're a Black woman, you are nothing. You can go on to have all of these degrees in the world. You can create businesses. You can be a leader and a champion in your community.
Right.
But people will always ask the question, are you in a relationship?
Yep.
Are you married? Do you want kids? And if you don't have those things yet, either because you've just not arrived to that place in your life, or just because, like, you don't want it, like myself, right? Because you just like, that's not really my driving force. Then people look at you as though you're less than. And so, in our society, patriarchal society, which is so deeply embedded into everything that we have in our world, the way that women are seen is that they're not seen. We're not seen as whole beings.
We're always the plus one. It's always the plus one. It's always the plus one. It's never like the one. I was trying to explain, because my grandmother, this is how my grandmother, I was raised. She was like, there's no gender roles. If you want to do it, you do it. And the other part was, the leader of the household is whomever is good at leading, because every every boss is not a good manager. So if and then a marriage or any type of ship, it requires 2 people, 3 people if you're fancy, and it's a partnership. So it's like, really, it's 1 + 1 = 2, not 1 1/2, and then
right.
It's like, I have my identity, you have your identity. That's how it works. It's simple math. That's
right.
It's some of the basics.
I know, but it's like, you know, our collective consciousness as people has been corrupted by, I think, when what I always go to, back to the question about structures or elements that sort of breed this line of thinking is Christianity, not just Christianity. Let me back up. Judeo-Christian ideologies, right?
Right.
Like the fact that people have actually corrupted the Bible to fit this narrative that a man was made first and a woman was made from his rib. That is a biological impossibility. So
it
could never happen.
Derived from like seahorses, you know, they're asexual, so maybe.
So I'm just thinking to myself, like, so we creating fables and fairy tales now, like that right there, that first creation story sets the tone about how a woman comes second to a man, right? And how she's always secondary to him, and that is extremely problematic. In addition to
how she messed it up for everybody too. You know, the first person to ever be blamed for anything was a woman. Right.
This is all connected to the larger conversation and the larger topic, which is the root cause of all of this insanity, which is patriarchy. I will forever stand by that, right? Like, patriarchy is the reason why you have people writing entire books talking about how to be a virtuous woman. I'm not here for that, okay? And y'all talking about this element of being virtuous. What is that born out of? Women being docile, women being weak, and
submissive.
Women being submissive. That term that people use in the Bible. Jazz, you remember when we would go to church as kids?
Girl,
child,
I want to forget it.
You gotta have flashback.
Okay, we were being drugged to church, okay, as kids, and even as a little person, big eyes, okay. Yes. I was just like, and hearing that, I was like, this is not right. Like, you know, when something is not right and you feel it in your soul and you feel it in your spirit. They talking about women submit unto your husbands. I think the F not. Right. Even at 8, 9, and 10 years old. And I get it, like, the Bible has been misquoted. It has been mistranslated in so many ways. But the fact that people consistently harp on that phrase or that verse specifically lets you know that, number one, Christianity is one of the largest conduits to continue to keep women in bondage, ideological bondage, economic bondage, social bondage, and everything in between. And that perpetuates these ongoing, really, really destructive ideologies and also these narratives about the quote unquote position of women. That is dangerous. And that is why we have constant issues about how Black women specifically, the topic of tonight, Black women specifically are always made invisible, forgotten about, and how the oppressions that we experience on a daily basis, in addition to these that become even more inflamed in this white patriarchal matrix, like those that I spoke about in the beginning, where Black women are being murdered, Black women are being physically and sexually assaulted at the hands of law enforcement officers, which is why these issues, these topics are not receiving the same amount of media coverage as well as social protests as our Black male counterparts.
Right.
So, y'all have anything else you want to say about that?
I think we need the same type of allies in Black men that we are expecting from white people. Like, the voice has to be the same. Like, you have to strip yourself from your privilege to actually stand on the front line for people that could be your mother, your sister, your daughter. So it's just like the silence kills me. And
exactly.
That's a great point.
You're not saying anything about it. Like, it's one post and then that's it. When it's like for engagement or likes or clicks or like oh, I'm conscious about this, but it's constantly. I actually was just mentioning to one of my friends, like, at first, Breonna Taylor, everybody was like, oh, her boyfriend, free him, and, you know, but then as soon as he got out of jail, it was like nothing else.
Yeah, because, like,
that's a great point, Nicole. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, a lot of times Black men turn into real alt-right-ish when it comes to, like, actually speaking up for Black women. Like, what I think you see oftentimes is Black women are the first people to run up and mobilize and protest, and we don't even ask questions. We don't vet nobody.
We don't vet anybody.
We see a Black person and we're like, oh, bet, got your back, especially a brother. But I think we find more often than not, we don't have the same protection or the same, like, call to action that from Black men that we do that Black women offer. And I think, like, even
it's not reciprocated. It's not reciprocated.
Even in response to, like, we can even talk about, like, helping out or standing up for, standing by a Black woman. Like, the whole thing that happened between Gabrielle Union and what is that guy name? I'm trying to forget his name.
No.
She said no name.
We're gonna go with that one. But when she was on the show, what's that?
I forgot out. I actually I'm sitting here trying to remember.
Beefy guy.
I think I honestly put it out of my mind. Because I was just like, you know, I'm sick of Black women not having the same type of support. When we stick up for Black men. Like, so she was Terry Crews is his name. So Gabrielle Union, I had to Google it real quick. But Gabrielle Union was extremely vocal when Terry Crews had aligned himself with the Me Too campaign. Was saying that he was molested by a white man. She spoke up for him, no questions asked. She just stood up for him and was like, this isn't right. We're gonna rally behind our brother, and we're gonna take care of him. Now, when she was talking about her experience on AGT, he was quick to come out and say, I don't know nothing about that. My experience is I didn't experience that. I don't know nothing about that. That ain't my plight. And then he doubled down on the BS and was like, the only woman that I need to support is my wife. Not even my daughters, not my mama, none of y'all with vaginas, except for the one that I'm humping in every so often. That is all that he wanted to give. And then after the backlash or blacklash, he came back and was like, my bad.
Like, speaking to any kind of personal experiences that you have had where it's like, you know, you've been the recipient of both racism and sexism, right? Like, at the same time. And it could be from, you know, people in our own Black community. It could be in places of work. Like, what has been your direct experience being a Black woman walking around on this earth? And if you've had occurrences or incidents where you have been over-sexualized, hypersexualized, where you have been treated through a very narrow lens of racism and sexual oppression, like, just talk about your experiences.
I guess I can relate to the, like, work issue. So not recently, like last year, I got a promotion.
Okay, congratulations, boo.
Congratulations.
So they literally thinned out the pay so that more people could get promoted, but it's also on trend to promote minorities and women. However, this is my third. It was like, if I didn't get promoted, I would be out the door.
Got you.
Because I was snubbed 3 times prior to.
Oh, wow.
So when I got my promotion, there was several white males that were upset that they had not got their promotion.
Oh, okay.
However, their performance was mediocre. Like, it was okay. Like, mine, of course, you know, Black women, we gotta be that plus some.
Yeah.
So mine was that plus some. So when they made the announcement, we all were in the office. And then so one of the white guys was really upset. And so his boss was trying to calm him down. And the reason that he didn't get the promotion was that they're pushing a Black woman and Indian woman initiative. So it's like a double word.
Wow, that's not offensive. That's not offensive at all.
Because you didn't do the job well at all.
Right.
You just
right.
You just happen to be Black, so you know, and female, so that's a plus. So you got the job. You have no skills at all. You're gonna run this company into the ground, but at least you're Black and female.
So
wow,
that happened on several occasions.
Wow.
It's like it comes off of, even when I was in the military part, like, because I'm now in like public private sector, I was working in the military, and they was like, well, you know, they needed the token Black person. So like, in versus I have a good working relationship and I communicate well, it's like, you know, they need a token. So it's always like an invalidation of skills, but a boost to their ego that I meet a quota. So those are usually like the issues. I was actually telling someone this story also about me dealing with the police. I think it was like the year after I graduated from Doug.
Oh, okay.
I had my then boyfriend driving my car. And so it was a BMW, but we were in Clayton County.
Okay.
Like not Clayton, Cobb County, dark. So you already know what time Cobb County's on. So we left out of Cumberland and we were trying to get back on the expressway, but they stopped us. So the first question, not license and registration, whose car is this?
Yep.
It's my car.
Wow.
He was like, your parents' car? I was like, no, it's my car. And then I was like, you want my license and registration? Because this is what you're supposed to ask for first. And I gave it to him, and he was like, well, how did you pay for this car? I was like, so then he was like, well, does the passenger have their ID? And I was like, what's the issue? Like, literally, what's the issue?
Right.
And so he was like, can y'all step out the car? So I was like, I don't have time for that. So I just stepped out the car. The gentleman I was with was like, he wasn't going to step out the car.
Wow.
Because he should have been detained. So he ended up having to step out the car. The cops drew guns and everything. And they put a gun to his face and was like, I will blow your head off inward.
Jesus.
And
wow.
then for all of that, I was literally, they basically was like, I was free to go, but they needed to pull and verify who he was. So I ended up calling my mama, and if anyone knows my mama,
she said it off.
You already know.
She said it off.
She did.
Like put me on speakerphone. She name dropped some people's names and let go. No tickets, no nothing. I don't even know why we got pulled over.
And they never, the police never actually stated what the point was for their pulling y'all over.
Because y'all didn't do anything wrong.
No, I was in a Black person in a BMW.
Exactly. That was the offense. Was that you were Black in a nice car.
You ain't had it. Like, that literally was the offense.
And you know what's so interesting too is that I really believe that happens quite often to a lot of Black women, but it's always sort of shifted. This narrative is always shifted where it's like, you know, it's always Black men who are driving that are always stopped by police. But we know that all too often this exact same thing happens to Black women. You know what, prime example, on June 18th, but I saw this video that was posted like 2 days ago. So a 23-year-old young woman named Janisha Wilkerson was stopped by police in Tampa, Florida. And she had a gun pointed on her for over 4 minutes after the police alleged that her car was stolen. She was later released without charges. And it was only after, because she recorded the entire thing taking place, right? The entire incident. It was only after she posted the recorded video of the incident that the police officers then released the entire body cam video of the incident. Now, the problem with that, which is ridiculous, I can't even believe that they did this, it was extremely unprofessional, was the entire body cam actually included when the officer was obtaining her phone number and also her address. And so do you know what happened forthwith? She received over 100 threatening phone calls and was forced to move from her home. So, you know, the fact that this is a reality that happens to so many Black women. I mean, this is what occurred with Sandra Bland, right? You know, Black women are stopped and harassed by police officers more often than not. What happens all too often is that not only are Black women pulled over by law enforcement officers because they're Black, but what happens and what ensues very quickly after that is that Black women are raped, they are sexually violated and assaulted because police officers abuse their power. They also abuse they abuse the power of their occupation. They also abuse their perceived power as being men in this effed up society. And so what they do is they incite sexualized fear and trauma into Black women. In 2015, a woman named Malayatra Montanes, who was 40 years old, she was a mother of two. She had actually called local law enforcement during that time. This was in Syracuse, New York. She called law enforcement to report that one of her daughters was missing. Now, there's a white cop several hours later who very appropriately, his name is Chester Thompson. He is Chester the molester, okay? So he arrived, and as soon as he arrived to this woman's house, this is a Black woman, he immediately started to make sexual advances towards her. He then made highly inappropriate comments about her body, and then he forcibly ordered her to go and get a condom. And what happened after that was he raped this woman, and he also demanded that Miss Montanes look at her newborn son, who was lying just a few feet away, as he was raping her. Now, this was in 2015 on Valentine's Day, okay? Now, she ended up filing a claim against him, and what ended up emerging out of this was that Chester the molester Thompson ended up pleading guilty, and he was convicted and given 3 years of probation, and he was then fired. That was it. Now, what also occurred is that she lodged a $7 million lawsuit against Thompson as well as Syracuse. And I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe that she did win her case. Now, the thing that is so infuriating about this is that this was not his only offense.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
This man, Chester the molester Thompson, had done this to women, not just Black women, but women in general, a number of times.
Right.
However, it went under the radar because he's a man, he's white, and he was a police officer. Now, absolutely. The fact is that, again, going back to reiterate this point and the entire focus and topic of this show, which is anti-Black womanism, okay, and the gender hierarchy in the pursuit of justice, is that these types of cases where Black women are stopped and pulled over by law enforcement officers, or when they are assaulted in their homes or their respective places of residence by law enforcement officers, what happens is sometimes a lot of these women do report these heinous crimes. However, media does not cover it in the way in which it should be done. Exactly. In comparison to how Black men who are killed, who are assaulted, who are brutalized by law enforcement officers. And this is what we're talking about in terms of this being the problem. Black women are consistently forgotten about. Our stories, our physicality, our sexuality, our mindsets, our consciousness is completely invalidated because not only are we Black, we're also a woman.
I want to just piggyback and speak on how you were talking about like women being molested and raped by police officers, and really cite two cases. I know y'all seen this video. It was back in 2012 or 13, where Ashley Dobbs, a 24-year-old, was stopped by police and given a cavity search on the side of the damn road.
That was in my notes. So you copying my notes again because you used to do that. Girl.
I know, right? You know what I'm saying? But, like, I remember,
but go ahead. Yeah.
And then they later said that she asked for it. She asked for a cavity search on the side of the road. And I was like,
for 11 minutes.
For 11 minutes, for somebody to take her out of a car, pull her pants down, and to stick their fingers in her vagina on the side of a road because they said they smelled weed.
Yep. And
they
actually, they smell weed. And what she was saying was she was leaving to go and get her mother, I believe, her medication.
Right.
And they did not believe her at all. So
they didn't believe her.
Black women are never believed. Like everything that we say is completely false. We're always lying, and everything that we do is invalidated. Right?
And our bodies and dignity is not given to us. The fact that you think this, like as a human being, you should look at a person and be like, I don't care what she has on her. It's not okay to search a woman on the side of the road. It's not okay, period, to search anybody, period. But you should, as a human, you should think, wait a minute, y'all.
Yep.
Something is not right about searching a woman, sticking your fingers in a woman's vagina on the side of the road or anywhere really, but on the side of the road and saying she probably got weed. I smell that loud coming out of her vagina. What?
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. And the other case that I wanted to cite was when we talk about police violence was the case of that crazy ass Daniel Holtzclaw, who was convicted a few years ago of rape. He was accused of assaulting 13 Black women, specifically Black women. Yes. And out of the 36 sexual assault charges, he was charged on 18 of them. Yep. He raped, molested, had women perform sex acts on him, and he did it because he knew nobody would care. And he was right about that. Yep. I think it was between 2013 and 2014. He got away with this. Every time he stopped, he specifically sought out Black women. He should have been charged with a hate crime.
Yep.
He preyed on Black women specifically because he knew nobody would give a damn about Black women. And it took, I think some women had said they went to the police before. Nobody believed them, but it was one woman who took it all the way. And then they started investigating it. Yep. And then he has the nerve to be sitting up here crying in court because he finally got caught. And his mom and daddy crying.
Yep.
You know, how women are Black. He knew that nobody cares. So he was like, well, I'm doing what I want to these girls, because nobody cares about them anyway, and I can get away with it because I got a badge to bully.
Yep. Right. Y'all know I'm I'm a whole lot of a conspiracy theorist for sure. But like I know for a fact, and I know in my bones, that in the midst of COVID, in the midst of everything that has happened in the most recent weeks with Black people being assassinated by racist law enforcement, like I just know that these crimes are still happening, where Black women and young Black girls are still being kidnapped, are still being sexually assaulted and violated in our communities across the nation, and it's not gaining any sort of media coverage whatsoever. Right. Now, y'all know that for 9.5 years, living and working in DC, and this was a few years ago when I had heard some stories about just this rising number of young Black teenage girls who were being kidnapped, and none of their parents would be able to really find them or track them or anything. So it's still to this day, I don't know the status of these cases. I don't know whatsoever. And so that's and it was very heightened in the DC area, DC, and also in PG County, which is in Maryland. It's a border area of DC. And so those areas are very heightened, and PG County, especially due to gentrification in the most recent years, has become heavily densely populated with a lot of African American communities. Okay. So and it's right outside of DC. And so a lot of these predators go to these areas where they know that young African American girls and women will be. Until this day, I still don't know what the status of their cases are. So that leads me to question, will there be some sort of further investigation or a campaign or a push to identify, number one, what the status of these cases are, and also what is law enforcement doing about it? because
barely anything though.
These are on the rise, and I know that they're barely doing anything, but it begs the question, what comes next? But also, why is it always on us to lead the charge?
Right. Why you got to take 2 million signatures and somebody popular on Instagram to set it off? So
right.
That is right. And that actually was happening to protesters. So like the last 2 weeks, women who have been protesting had come up missing.
Oh wow.
So they were said they had got arrested or detained, but nobody can't find them.
Oh yeah. Goodness.
So that was for women and men, but like the men eventually got out, but nobody is, where are these women?
They sold them probably. And only the stats are, I think it's only about 4% of women who are sexually trafficked are returned. That is a very, very low statistic. So pretty much the thing is, because honestly, sex trafficking is a well-planned thing.
Oh, it's very, very, very well orchestrated.
Very well planned.
Yeah, very well orchestrated.
A lot of these people, these women will never be returned. Most of them will never be returned. Like I said, only about 4%. I think that was the number. I did some research before, and I think the numbers are about 4% of sex trafficking victims are actually returned. So it's so low, and they move them from place to place to place to place, so that people cannot find them.
My goodness.
But Black women actually, I was watching some type of documentary. Black women are usually sent to places like the Middle East and like, so they will get your ass on a plane as soon as possible. But then that goes to the breakdown of community policing, because it's someone at the airport that is involved with it. And I use this as an example. So one of my, I guess she's like my third level, like the cousin structure. I posted last year that she was missing. So she was at a mall with her friends, and someone snatched her. They found her in the airport trying to board a plane. So she not only got through TSA, she was about to board a plane, but the ticket that she had was not working. They didn't clear the plane or nothing. They kept it moving as usual. They were asking her questions. She just was like, she had got the ticket and was told to go here. And she also has like cognizant, I don't want to say mental, but cognizant issues. Nothing. So like, how did you get past TSA?
Right.
14, so she didn't have a license or none of that.
No kind of identification.
No. Somebody had to make all this up to give her. No clothes, no nothing, just this ticket.
Wow.
Man, listen. Wow.
So, I know this might branch off, but I wanted to talk about the people that are on the other side. So, you know, I gave my little police story, but it's a lot of women in prison that are getting raped and by correction officers, and especially in the women's jail. And it was one Florida prison where a woman actually, she was supposed to be getting out, I think 4 years, but she had popped up pregnant, and she was accusing one of the guards raping her. And then she ended up mysteriously dying. Because they were like, you know, to prove it, when she has the baby, the whole test, she was dead, ended up dead. And they were like, oh, it's in the prison. That's when killed her.
Wow.
See, and
that's a whole nother level of people that are forgotten about. Because
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Thank you for bringing that up, Nicole, because you're absolutely right. Like, we're already invisible in this fucked up society, and then you add to that women who are imprisoned, right, which is another layer of oppression, specifically for like women and also Black women and brown women too. And that happens very often. Women in prison systems, they are sexually violated because these men know it's like, well, what are you going to do about it, right? Like, number one, no one's gonna believe you. Number two, you're in here because you are a criminal, allegedly, right? And number three, if you say anything, I'm gonna assault you even more. I still believe that there are a lot of pockets of people, both Black men and Black women, who do not understand the severity of it, and also who live their lives every day through a prism of white supremacy. And I'm gonna tell you why. In the midst, y'all, in the midst of us talking about justice for George Floyd, justice for Ahmaud Arbery, a lot of the activity that I specifically have seen online, and I don't know if we said this in the beginning of the show, but a lot of the activity that I have seen online, Facebook, Instagram, not really Twitter, but mostly Facebook and Instagram, is that people who are parents, these are Black folks, who have Black children,
Yep.
both Black boys and Black girls, are taking a lot of photos and posting them and wearing shirts with various insignias like "I can't breathe" and all of these other things, a photo of George Floyd, and they put up this emblem that says, "Because I have a Black son."
Yep.
Now I'm gonna tell you why this is damaging as fuck. Okay. Those of you that have Black daughters, we just gave y'all 7.5 million reasons why y'all need to be saying "because I have a Black daughter." Or in fact, you can remove gender from it and say "because I have a Black child."
Yeah.
Okay? And I think that will crystallize
It'll help you out a bit.
It will cement the fact that regardless of your gender, okay, if you are in a Black body, you can and probably will be victimized by police brutality. You will have an encounter with Karen, like what Jazz talked about before. You'll have an experience like Nicole mentioned before about being pulled over because you are a Black person driving a high-end car, okay? Like, please make sure that those of you who are listening right now, those of you who will be listening to the replay, please understand that when you say "because I have a Black son," and you have daughters or one daughter that's listening to this, you are also an agent of creating her invisibility. You are negating.
Yes, you are.
You are negating the fact that your Black daughter is a person and that she exists.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
And that she may too at some point run into some type of misogyny, some type of what do they call it, like massage noir, or they
massage noir, yeah,
issues with police officers or a Karen, or that their Black bodies are seen as inherently evil.
Yep.
So that they may have an encounter with one of these people someday. You are telling your girl, "Hold on, sis.
Yeah.
This ain't for you. This is for my son who may possibly be stopped." Oh, but if you happen to be molested on the side of the road by a police officer, we'll handle that too. But let me just talk about my son who he may have an encounter with a police officer. Y'all are doing this to your daughters, and you don't even understand what y'all are telling. The messaging that you're giving to your daughters is that they don't matter.
Yep. And that messaging is dangerous. And if you're putting that up on a public forum, like, you know, you're changing your profile picture or you're posting a photo saying "because I have a Black son," if you're doing that in such a very public space, I shudder to think about what you're saying in a private space, like in your home. And you may not be direct or intentional in your sexist, patriarchal messaging, but the tone is still there. And so I would implore all of you that do have children and you're Black, please, please, please make sure that you stop, think about it,
yes,
and really, really understand what are the messages, what are the deeply embedded patriarchal, sexist, misogynistic, misogynoiristic, that's not even a word.
I mean, listen, we can put stuff together.
Okay, like what are the ongoing messages that are embedded into your home, which is also an institution? Like, if you're saying this message to your daughter, which I have a lot of female friends co-workers, people that I know who talk about this dynamic way too often in their child rearing experience or in their upbringing. Okay,
Right.
they have a brother, and sometimes they are older than their brothers. And what has happened? What has been a part of their experience in this human form, in this human experience, is that their brothers are coddled. Their brothers are held with kid gloves. Their brothers are allowed to go out and party to their heart's content, and they are also given the keys to the kingdom to go out and sow their wild oats and their royal oats. Whereas for the girls, for these women with whom I have friendships with and who I've worked with in the past, their experiences have been hellish at most, right? Like, you know, the messaging that they received was, keep your legs closed. You can't go out here and do what your brother does, you know, and just everything in between.
Your sexuality is defined by me, because if I can't keep you from having a baby young, that is a representation of me, and you will have sex when I tell you to. Because I'm gonna check your house.
Right? Because can we talk about T.I.? Yeah, I said it, because that is a problem, and he may watch this. And shout out to you, T.I. I'm from Atlanta too. What's up? But you know what time it is. Like, when you encourage your sons who are younger than your daughter, you actually coerce them and you push them to have sex at a very early age.
With somebody else's daughter. How about
with someone else's daughter, okay? With someone else's daughter, that is problematic, okay? And like, let's just be real clear. These men, these fathers, are not at all concerned whatsoever about the safety and protection of their daughters, especially when it comes to her sexuality. What they really care about is that they don't want their daughters to be treated like how they've treated so many other women in this life. And that's what it boils down to, because what men see all too often in their daughters is that they are a simple and a mere biological extension of them, and that they are not autonomous, and that's what it's really about. So that just kind of echoes this ongoing message about anti-Black womanism and deeply embedded patriarchal norms, and also the gender hierarchy. That is what it is. And so my contention is, since we're in this really powerful space right now in our society, where we've seen things shift and transform a lot just in a month, right? Like, we have to continue that. And so if we're not evolving, then what is the point? In order for us to make sure that these transformations and that these changes that have been happening in our society, if they're going to be sustainable, then we have to change up here. We got to evolve up here.
Exactly.
If you're not transforming your belief systems, well, then it's going to be really easy to revert back to old systems and old ways of thinking, doing, and being. So it's important for us to really, like, you know, unlearn a lot of these deeply embedded norms, and to also, like my third point in the beginning of the statement, like, in order for us to thoroughly address a social problem or heal a malady, heal a sickness, you have to acknowledge that it actually exists. What is if y'all could list like 1 to 2 solutions that you all think could be implemented or employed in our communities to dismantle anti-Black womanism? What do y'all think? And either one of y'all can go.
I think that one, we need to stop the gender roles. Like, once you start putting roles on things that you could do, you're actually starting the systematic oppression of doing that too. So if you're telling your daughter, oh, you can't be an engineer because that's a guy's job, then you're putting a ceiling on your daughter.
There you go.
So just all the labeling needs to kind of go away and see people as individuals. Like, you're a person, that's it. And so once we start to do that, I feel like the divisiveness of labels is what happens. Like, we can go back all the way to the Pangea and all the way to the
okay.
If you look before Plato wants to give these whole labels of people back in the day, and his labels started with elitism versus color. It was like you was rich or you was poor.
Yep.
But then it kept tacking on more. So you're now from the north, or you're from the south, or you from the wetlands. And then it went from you're black, or you Spanish, or you like it kept adding layers on it. So let's just strip all of the labeling that's divisive, because scientifically we are alike across the spectrum.
Right.
For DNA, the differences come in hue of skin, but that's really based on your origin, of how you adapted to your civilization. So it's black people who are fair skinned with red hair and blue eyes. So it's not a white street. So that's where I feel like we just need to take all the labels off. Like, of course, we know you're female, but that female doesn't mean that you have to be a mother.
Right.
You have to work in a domestic job. Or you have to be submissive. Like,
Exactly.
It constructs these oppressive viewpoints.
Exactly.
So that's my spiel.
I agree.
100. Right. Like, female is not synonymous with being less than. Okay.
Right.
Or where you are only relegated to domesticity or being in a subservient role in your own community and in your life. I love it. What about you, Middleist?
So I want to encourage people to release their egos. Number one, release your ego. And with that, I mean, listen to someone. Don't work so hard to deny somebody of their lived experience. If somebody is telling you, I'm experiencing this, don't you turn around and say, but I, and no, you don't, because let me tell you, or you know how people used to say back in the day, oh, that ain't nothing. Let me tell you about what happened to me. And you like, actually, I just got my whole ass raped. You know what I mean? Like, don't just try to tell somebody that their experience is not right, or that they don't have the right to feel how they feel because of what they're trying to tell you that happened to them. And also, too, I would really encourage people, because people always say you have the right to your opinion. I push back on that. I say you don't have the right to your opinion. You have the right to an informed opinion. I want to challenge everybody to be informed, because information is available. And if you just do the research, and not only just look for what you want, but really, really do the research, but you're going to read some things that you don't want to hear. And then some things are going to debunk what you thought. But it is your responsibility to be informed. And the next one I would say is, and I know this is hard to do, but I want to ask people to be actionable. And really, what I mean by being actionable is, well, like I think Nicole said it earlier, when you see somebody doing something wrong, call them out. Don't sit there and let your homeboys sit up here and, like, for instance, that I know y'all saw the video of a young lady who was hit with a skateboard. And a bunch of black men
in New York.
Yeah, a bunch of black men were recording it. Yeah. He hit her in the face with a skateboard because she told him no to his advances towards her. The fragile male ego allowed him to sit up here and hit this woman with a skateboard when she told him, no, I don't want to talk to you, because she didn't have the right, in his opinion, to tell her no. So I looked at all of those men around there laughing. Not a single soul said, not
one of them.
Hey, they're foul, niggas. Like, no.
Yes. Sorry. Nobody.
Not one of them. Not one of them. One of them. And this was just a few months ago.
No, it was a few weeks ago.
Oh, okay, a few weeks ago. Yes. Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
If it wasn't last week, it was maybe 2 weeks ago. Yeah, they're still looking for him.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, they're still looking for him. And so, and that goes along with the whole culture of snitching too, and people ain't gonna tell, but you know, that's a whole nother conversation or whatever. But it's okay. Y'all see me?
Yep, there you go. Nicole was like, hold up.
Look, y'all, I'm trying to tell y'all, the more we start talking about this, the more everything is like, we don't want y'all to have these conversations.
Listen, they trying to infiltrate us, but I'm gonna tell y'all right now, Antifa, you can stay out. Them crisis those Black Panther crisis actors, y'all not getting up in here. And COINTELPRO, Just go ahead and go.
But I just want to say that before my phone cuts off yet again. I really want people to be actionable and call folks out. It may not be in the most comfortable place, and you may find yourself more often not being alone because people aren't going to want to be around people who call folks out. But the thing is, it will make you feel better. Right. It will make you feel better about yourself and what you're doing for humanity if you tell people this is not right. This is a Black woman. This is a Black man. These are humans. And you simply cannot treat people this way. And then y'all need to rally around people and help them to get the help that they need by turning their asses in, and telling them that this is not right. And also the man who put that Black woman in a trash can, put her in a dumpster. We need to get him together too. So again, being actionable with calling people out and telling them this is not right when you see something going wrong. And that's kind of some of the things that I have to say about some of the ways to be, to be active in change.
Y'all shut it down tonight. I'm gonna just tell y'all that right now.
This is a good conversation.
This was a great.
All the interruptions.
Right. Listen. If I know one thing is true. Right. If I know one thing is true, nothing stops Black women. You hear me? Nothing.
Not a damn thing.
Okay? Not a doggone thing. So, listen, y'all who are watching and listening, thank you all so much for doing that. Y'all heard it here on Community Conversations, a call to action where we have been talking non-stop, giving y'all the business, giving y'all the business in regards to the forgotten ones and the very true reality of anti-Black womanism and the gender hierarchy in the pursuit of justice. Y'all, Jazz and Nicole, y'all are and were amazing.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Of course. Yeah, no, of course. I mean, I want to extend so much gratitude to you both for being who you are, number one, and for speaking very honestly, very truthfully, and very passionately about this very real issue, and sharing your personal experiences that you have had as Black women living in this white patriarchal matrix of oppression, and for also offering solutions and sustainable and actionable ways that we can actually eradicate this in our communities and also throughout the entire world. So give it up for yourselves. Thank you both. Y'all are amazing. Okay. Of course, you all, my name is J.R. Baker Flowers. Please make sure that you head on over to any of my social media. You can find me on Instagram at J.R. Baker Flowers. I am also the founder and the director of the UNLEARNing Project LLC, where the sole mission is to create and cultivate a space where multimedia and other educational resources are used as actual tools to unlearn racism, sexism, homophobia, and transphobia. Okay. Also, go on ahead and head over to Amazon.com. I usually don't do this and plug my own stuff, but make sure you head over to Amazon.com, pick up my book called Breaking Bitch, Dismantling the Lies to Reclaim Your Truth. It's lit, and I'm not biased in saying that. It's wonderful. It's amazing. Y'all go ahead and support a Black woman, because we're talking about anti-Black womanism. So support this Black woman right here. Okay. All right.
Exactly.
And you can also find me on Instagram at the UNLEARNing Project. Okay.